I was talking to some of the guys from another Netflix show last week about Guy Ritchie,
Yeah.
and they were kind of almost saying, we didn't even read the script. It was Guy Ritchie. And from what I gather is that's actually true with you with Three Body Problem because you just thought, I love these guys. Let's do it. Is that accurate?
Well, I was actually in talks to do another show, as they say, advanced talks, as they say in Hollywood. And obviously, David and Dan have pretty serious intel. And I got a call from them. We got a text and you take a call. I went, yeah. And they said, you're not going with them, you're coming with us. And I literally went, okay. The call was about a minute.
Right.
And then I hung up and I thought, professionally, that probably wasn't desperately clever.
Yeah.
And it could have been a week's work or whatever, but it turned into this character that they'd essentially written for me. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of it yet, but
I have. I've watched 4 episodes.
oh, have you? Okay, then you know that I've got a big thick Dublin head in me in it, and it's just a joy. Listen, you do it because of the quality of the writing. It's nothing to do with let's have another Game of Thrones or anything like that, because that's so much out of our power. They write beautifully, and any actor worth their salt wants to work with people who are at the top of their game, and they've just so much respect for the word that it's a luxury to get to work with them.
When you first got word of Game of Thrones and people were talking about shadow babies and dragons, you were like, I'll stop you there. And then you read it.
Yeah.
And you were like, this has allusions to Beckett. There's so much going on in this, you know? And Three Body Problem is similar. I mean, this is, on the surface, maybe sci-fi, but it's about environment. It might be something to do with immigration. There's all sorts of things going on in a very Game of Thrones way, even though they're completely different. Or that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There are some very big themes on this. And I mean, there's the future of the human race.
That's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't get much bigger, does it? But I suppose, there is, I've been thinking about it, there is a bit of a difference. I mean, obviously the fantasy world where you're holding the mirror up to societies, and Game of Thrones had themes of the corruption, the corruptive nature of power and legacy and family and jealousy and paranoia, whereas this thing is very much about an existential threat. And you've seen, as we call them in the show, the Oxford Five, which are these kind of perfectly normal human beings with human problems, relationships and illness and direction of where they're going. And however, my character, when this existential threat shows up, has to garner them, because the only way we're going to beat this is with science and technology. But it's about the survival of the human race, of our species.
Yeah.
And very much that if we don't work together, then the whole house of cards comes down. And the only way we're going to continue as a species is if we work together and be kind to one another.
You mentioned the big Dublin head on you. He's rough around the edges, and he wears a suit, and to use a Dublin phrase, he's a bit of a hatchet man. But I mean, ultimately, he's probably on the side of the angels because he just wants to get the job done, right?
100% correct. That's and you know what? In a weird way, any time I had any character, motivation problems or anything like that. That was more or less the phrase I said to myself. He just wants to get the job done. There's not a lot of airs and graces about him. He the end justifies the means, and there is some. You've got where did you say you were on episode 4 or something?
Yes, I've done the first 4, so I've only 4
you've
more
got
to
some
go. There won't be a quiz now or anything.
No. But you've got some extraordinary events coming up. Which are kind of jaw-dropping stuff. There's some fantastic drama in this, and you can see already, having seen the episodes that you've seen. I mean, Netflix haven't been shy about the budget. No. It's an enormous show. It's really cinematic and lush, and we've got the production designer Deborah, who's a genius, and she did all of Game of Thrones. We've got our cameramen and camera operators from Game of Thrones. We've got some of our directors from Game of Thrones. it's the best of the best that we had thrown at this. So we can only hope that the audience takes to it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. And for what it matters, my wife watches most of this stuff with me, and she really enjoyed it as well, and is looking forward to finishing it. And actually said to me, "I know you're talking to them today, but can we actually watch the rest of this when you finish talking to them?" So that's
in other words, she was worried you were going to stop watching once you got the interview out of the way.
No, I never do that. Listen, this is going to make you feel old, but I feel like I've been watching you for a long time, right?
Tell me about it.
And there's so many things I'd like to ask you about, but time is short. But my favorite scene of yours is opposite Michael Fassbender in Hunger. And people might know it's this incredible piece of cinema that I think is 19 minutes or 21 minutes long, where you are the priest talking to this hunger striker. How many takes and how much preparation did that involve? And I'm wondering, do you have vivid memories of that? I mean, you may not, but it's just, I do.
I've been told, listen, I wasn't up with a stopwatch, but somebody told me it's 22 and a half minutes long, the scene. 28 pages of dialogue, and the first cut is 17 and a half minutes into the scene. What you see on the screen is the fourth take.
Okay.
And because we did do it in one take, 4 times. Me and Michael moved in together for basically 2 weeks to prepare the scene. It was tough. We treated it like theatre rehearsal, a two-hander theatre show, and we'd be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'd rehearse each portion of it bit by bit each day, and Steve was preparing the film and shooting the beginning of it. And then would come around in the evening, have a look at the work that we'd done, give us a few notes here and there, and then we would continue working on our own. And we did that for about 2 weeks, I think, before we got to shoot it. It was tough, but listen, the most rewarding stuff is generally stuff that's the most challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, finally, I mentioned, you see, I keep making you feel old, but that I've been watching it for a while. It's been very successful for you, though, in recent years. Was there a time where you ever thought, is this working out? Am I going to be able to pay the bills? You know, someone once said actors, along with musicians, invented unemployment. I guess I'm asking, was there a point where you got to it and you thought, it's okay, I have the job now, I can live and do this?
No, if you ever think like that you're safe, you play safe. No, it can be whipped away. You're as good as your last job. And listen, I've had the sheriff at the door. I've nearly lost the house. The taxman wanted to batter me. It took me 10 years to get him off me back. I'm not even joking. It's occasionally been a struggle. As I like to say, I've been 30 years to be an overnight success. It's tricky. But listen, I love what I do. It's my long-suffering missus who had to put up with poverty by choice when she didn't really garner the benefit of it at the time, and indulged me my ludicrous ambition to be a professional actor who could feed his family, and the likelihood of that happening was quite slim. There is about a 90% unemployment rate in acting at any one time. So I chose poverty. But luckily, it's worked out for the last one. Game of Thrones was the first thing that gave me a bit of security.
Fascinating. Well, listen, my wife and I send you our best, and we're going to watch the rest of the show this evening and over the next night. I do have 3 small kids in my defense, so that's why sometimes don't get into us. It's lovely to see you again, Liam. Thanks a million.
My best to your wife.
Thank you very much. Cheers.